Stop reading romance. It is frying your brain, it is anti-intellectualism, and it is porn at best. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm a fellow bookseller and also a book lover and reader, so I think that gives me just a couple of credentials and a little bit of brownie points to make some good recommendations for you guys. Obviously that was a little bit clickbaity. I read romance myself and I love the genre, but do I think that it is a great spring into a further love of reading and discovering other genres and other authors? Absolutely. And I am here today to show you that there is a world beyond romance if you so wish to choose explore it. I do have a cold on the way out, so I apologise if I sound a little bit stuffy. I am trying to kind of push through that and just enunciate properly, but it's getting in the way a little bit. So today's video is going to be a genre tasting, somewhat of a genre tasting. I have pulled together some books that I have read, allegations on Book Talk, and loved. Love them all in different ways. These are from various different genres, and I have always had a love for romance, always had a love for fantasy romance in particular. But what I will say is that working in a bookshop, but also spending time on Book Talk, has really helped me to branch out outside of that, which might sound really surprising because it's obviously filled with so much romance on Book Talk. But I think it has really inspired me to try thrillers, to try historical fiction, to try classics, which is, I mean, that's a whole different issue because that's not really a genre, but anyway. Horror even, other fantasies that I might not usually get myself into. Again, I think this is a world worthy of exploration, and I really hope that you guys come along for the ride and you try a little bit of each of these books. I'm going to start off with a psychological thriller that I recommend to absolutely everyone that wants to get into reading. Why? Because The Silent Patient is a book that you will want to finish and you will absolutely inhale in your first couple of sittings, if not one sitting. The fact that it's a psychological thriller keeps you reading. You want to find out what happens at the end. I love playing a little game with myself when I read crime, when I read thrillers, and I don't read them often, but when I find a good one, when I find a good egg, it really stays with me. The game I like to play is I like to guess the ending, and I've not been able to guess the ending of this. Anyone I've recommended it to in the bookshop, just like customers, have said the same thing to me. I've had customers come back and ask for other recommendations because they've loved this so much, which honestly is such a fulfilling feeling, and I love that. This is guaranteed to make you sit and read. And if you are struggling to get back into reading, I would highly recommend reading The Silent Patient. In general, thrillers and horror and crime are quite good for devouring a book in one sitting. Without spoiling anything in the book, this book is about a psychologist that is working with this woman that has allegedly murdered her husband. People have tried to work with her, tried to get out the reasons as to why she did this, why she committed this murder. She won't speak. She hasn't spoken for years. And slowly she starts to kind of work with this psychologist. And you see why. They seem to kind of build a form of relationship and understanding that she hasn't really found in anyone else, right? Everything unravels. Crazy ending. Read this book. Also, how lucky am I to have a signed first edition? Are you kidding? I did not jump on this train when this book was released. I read it... How long ago did I read this? Like 3 years ago? I found this in a charity shop for £1.70. A signed first edition. Are you kidding? Next, I'm going to continue with a little bit of crime, but we're going to go into historical fiction mixed with crime. We've got Silverbone. Released earlier this year, Silverbone is by Andrei Kirkov. He is a Ukrainian author. I actually went to see him speak at Piccadilly. He did like an author event for his book. He is amazing and so hilarious, but has very, very dark humour. But it was just such a wonderful evening. He's really, really an amazing author. And you know when you meet an author and their vibe and just their personality makes you love the book even more? there is so much research that goes into his books. His books are historically accurate, which if you love history and you love learning, you can kind of get two in one. You're reading a fiction book, you're learning about history. They do normally center around 1918, 1917. That's his favorite period, he did mention in that talk, Russia in particular. And you are learning a lot about the Soviet Union in his books as well. Obviously, these are like political parabolas, if that's how you pronounce it. A lot of them are using a lot of surrealism and making fun of the regimes that were present in that time, but also, I guess, continuing. This is, again, a well-researched, super funny book. There's so many things in this that happen that I'm like, what on earth? There was one bit that mentioned like an underwear law where if you were housing a officer or like a soldier, you had to provide them a pair of underwear, and this was like an actual law that was enforced. There were so many stupid laws, and you discover them through this book and so many other things. And like, if you're really into niche history, this is the book for you. And it's not that big. It is not that big. Again, very easily devourable. Following on from historical fiction, we're moving along. We have The Book of Secrets by Anna Mazzone. This is probably my favourite book that I've read this year. It came out in April, I believe, and I read it, and I actually just saw it randomly on a shelf in the shop while I was shelving. I just picked it up and I thought, this sounds really good. I love anything to do with witches. Sounds pretty interesting. It is about a bunch of different women that are resulting to using witchcraft, or what is deemed as witchcraft in that era, to escape abusive husbands and just men in their lives, brothers, etc. This story is so beautiful in that it has multiple perspectives. You get to see the relationship and the bond that forms between these women who in the first place may have not known about each other, but there's things that happen and they start to discover about each other, and everything kind of intertwines into one storyline. You're also following the perspective of a male detective. So there's a little bit of crime in this as well, I suppose. He is trying to figure out what is happening, why there's so many deaths. This is set in 17th century Italy, I believe. And people think it's the plague. However, they slowly realise all these deaths are starkly similar, very strange, and it's only men. And so they think, oh my god, it must be witches. Obviously, it must be witches, must be the women, always the women. They just go on this absolute hunt for the woman that is, I guess, the main witch. No description I ever give this book is going to give it justice, because the research behind this, it is based on a true story, by the way, which I think makes it even more insane. The research behind this, the artistry behind forming these relationships with these women. I would not call this a feminist novel, but the way it's written just really resonates. I urge anyone with even a slight interest in witchcraft or a slight interest in Italy or 17th century Italy or anything to do with this book, I really urge you to try and read this book, and you're going to fall in love as much as I did. We're going to go on to some horror. We have Stephen King Misery. Now, when I say horror, listen, girls, before you start complaining, I know that horror can be a lot more grotesque, a lot more scary than this. And I'm not talking Verity Colleen Hoover. I'm talking there is a lot more blood and gore and etc, etc. I'm not really a horror girly, but when I read this, when I experienced horror in a book for the first time, my god, I was checking over my shoulder. I was scared for my life. So essentially what happens is the author, this is a very meta book, the author has a car accident. Annie Wilkes rescues him. So lovely of her. So she rescues him, takes him into her cottage, takes care of him. It's just so lovely. The end. No, I'm kidding, guys, I wish. There is so many insane things that happen in this book, and she's just like actually fucking mentally deranged. If you are looking to read a book about like a mentally deranged person, this is the book for you. I swear to God. I will say, if you are like squeamish, I don't know if there's like some kind of trigger warning you can look up for this. I don't want to spoil anything, but there is, it's a horror book. It's Stephen King. Like, expect blood and gore and just not very pleasant things, you know? So this one, this is definitely a kicker. And perfect for autumn, perfect for Halloween. Give that one a go. Okay, we've got to calm the vibes a little bit. We've just read a really scary book. We're going to read The Spell Shop. This book is happiness and joy and peace and all good things in the world in a book. If you are looking for some fantastic escapism and just something that is going to put a smile across your face, there are things that still happen in this book, by the way. I feel like when people say like a happy book, you automatically think like, oh, there must be no plot then. At least that's what I think. But this is the first time, honestly, I reached for a happy book. And it's such a cozy fantasy. It is about this main character that has to escape the library that she works in. There's a rebellion and things going on, so she has to go to a nearby island. She starts to set up a life for herself on this island. She has originally come from that island, so she kind of roughly knows her way around it. She comes across this boy, there's a little bit of a romance, and she opens her little jam shop. She has a flippin' jam shop. Like, this is just so cute. There's obviously things that happen and there are high stakes in this, but in no way, shape or form is this like blood and gore and like fae murdering each other. This is just such a sweet little book. If you are looking for like honestly a nectar of sunshine, read this book. And again, perfect for autumn, so cozy. So you've just finished the spell shop. You're looking for a little bit more fantasy, maybe fairy tale, maybe folklore. Say hello to The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Ard. The genius that she is. This is based on Russian folklore. Honestly, I want to say Slavic folklore because being Polish, I do recognise crossovers and there is a lot of crossovers. We won't get into the historical context of that, but this is such a comforting read in the strangest way. The best way I can describe it to anyone that I've spoken to, even in the bookshop, is it feels like someone is reading a bedtime story for me. I feel like a child reading a fairy tale again. Obviously, quite an adult one, and I'm not speaking in terms of smut and like overt romance and all these things. I just mean there's quite a lot of serious things that happen in this book. It's obviously not a fairy tale for children. Best world building I've experienced to date. This is a trilogy, but I urge you just to try the first one. Don't even think about the fact that there's 2 other books. Just forget about it, forget about it. You can go on to them if you've truly fallen in love, and I think you will. I think this book sort of ignited a memory of a very short childhood in Poland that I had, and just like, I don't know, I tried to read Polish folklore fantasy books and it just wasn't it. This is written so beautifully. What I really enjoy about this is how well researched it is. She did not miss. There isn't a single detail that she overlooked, and it is set in medieval Russia, which I think is also something I really enjoyed. In comparison to The Silver Bone, which is obviously like 1918. Listen guys, all I'm gonna say is I read this during exam time and I had to like have a talk with myself and concentrate on my exams, but I still finished the book and I had to stop myself from reading the other 2 and pick them up straight after. The next one is gonna be a little bit of a crazy ride for you guys. This is Perfume. This is your classic. This is the I want to dabble in classics, but I don't know where to start. This is such a strange book in the best way possible. The ending is fucking crazy. Anyone that's read this book, please share in the insanity and just like that experience with me in the comments. What on earth is that ending? One of the best like plot twists that I've ever seen. It's essentially about this dude that's born that doesn't smell like a normal baby. He doesn't smell of milk and he doesn't smell like a sweet little baby. You might be wondering, like, that's such a weird thing to say. That's literally how the book starts, right? So you're hooked from the beginning. He is thrown out his orphanage and no one wants him. And people are like, oh my God, like this dude's so weird. He grows up, starts to work for this like perfumery. He has a very strong sense of smell. He's great at this. He's great at perfumery. Such a strong sense of smell, in fact, that he can smell the distinction between different women and has a very strange obsession with this particular woman, and so many things happen within that. I think that the strangeness of this book and this concept is so blaring and in your face that you are forced to just read this book from the beginning to the end. I will be honest, the first 50 pages or so were quite difficult to get through, but please continue and please push through because this is probably going to be one of the wildest books you've ever read. Guys, I'm gonna be so real, my camera died, so I hope the lighting hasn't changed too much, nor the position of the camera. Don't mind if the bed looks a little bit comfier than it was. I was waiting for the camera to charge. Last book, we have a translated fiction, The Vegetarian by Han Kang. Han Kang is a South Korean author. In this book, there is a very traditional kind of relationship, a very low-key boring marriage, right? Then the wife starts to have very strange dreams, and these dreams influence her day-to-day behaviour. She then becomes a vegetarian. Oh my god, who would have guessed? And she just starts being very weird. It goes way beyond than her being a vegetarian. And you're following the perspective of the husband that's like dealing with this and coping with this. And I know it sounds ridiculous. Like, what do you mean the husband is coping with her being a vegetarian? But she gets admitted to a hospital. There are crazy things that happen. She is essentially like psychologically not okay. So again, very mentally deranged. The fact that she is a vegetarian is just honestly the foundation for everything else that happens in this book. Don't be misled by the title. It's not a book about a vegetarian. This isn't propaganda. I'm not trying to convert you guys to veganism. This is just such a well-written exploration of this man's feelings and dealings with his wife that's gone absolutely insane, and just like how that affects them in terms of society and reputation and what's expected. It's just such a great discussion of that in a book. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of books. So that is all of them for today's video of genre tasting. However, please let me know if you'd like more book recommendation videos, in particular where we go through lots of different genres. It is something that I'm super passionate about, and obviously work in a bookshop because I enjoy giving recommendations, and especially super tailored ones. And I think that reading is something that everyone would love if they just found that perfect book. And the more you read, the more likely you are to discover that genre that just clicks for you. And it might not even be like a genre, it might not be like crime, it might be a subgenre, it might be psychological thrillers that you're really into. And I think that these books cover a good breadth of things where you will be able to slowly pick up on tropes and themes that you are really interested in, and hopefully begin your reading journeys or extend your reading journeys into other realms. Also, do add me on Goodreads if you would like some live updates on what I'm reading and what I'm thinking about what I'm reading and my reviews. Do add me on Goodreads. I'll put that here. It is new for me. I've just like started setting it up, so I'm yet to log every single book, but I'm slowly and surely doing it, and I am updating as I read as well, so you will be able to see what I'm currently reading. Okay, thanks guys, bye!